Hey, what is up mortals? It is BubblyNami here, and welcome to part 3 of What If Deku Started with Black Whip. Just wanted to greet you guys by saying sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. And so, we begin. That's it for class today. There's only 1 week left before your final exams begin. I'm sure you're all studying and training hard. Good luck. Aizawa said, encouraging class 1A before he stepped out of the class. Quite recently, the students' internship with the Pro Heroes had ended, and their final exams for their semester was just around the corner. This class had been through a lot in such a short period of time. They'd grown through all these experiences. Now the final exams were approaching, and they'd give it their all, as always. Izuku for one could attest to that fact, having participated in the sports festival, he had successfully defeated Todoroki, a rival of his, but couldn't continue in the festival due to damages sustained by using his quirk. That was where his journey began. He aimed to find the way to use Black Whip without incapacitating himself during battle. Thus he had interned with Gran Torino, All Might's former teacher, and the wise veteran had aimed him in finding a way to utilize his quirk. Now Midoriya released a fragment of Black Whip's power at a time. 5% for now was his limit to using his quirk fluently without hurting himself. The quirk was mostly a support type for grabbing things and restraining villains, but with his creativity he had devised means to use it offensively as well. But that wasn't all. During the internship, Midoriya had a bizarre encounter with the hero killer Stain, and took him down. Not without help of course, he fought alongside his classmates Ida and Todoroki to bring the villain down. Now it was all over. Midoriya took the time to assess his classmates. He had to admit, they'd all grown considerably. Though most of them had a lively attitude, they always did, Midoriya could feel an air of growth to them. They all grew to understand the gravity of their course with each passing day, and how important a hero's job was. Once Aizawa left the class, the chatter began. Everyone had something to say, whether it was relating to the internships or the final exams. They were all eager to talk, but what they talked about mostly were the exams. Some students made plans to study harder in groups for the exam, others who were topped in the midterm test offered to tutor the rest of those at the bottom of the class, just bemoaned their situation. Once it was time, they all went to the cafeteria to grab something to eat. Some students of class 1A sat around a table speculating what the practical exam could entail. The written exams wouldn't be outside of what they learned in class, but the practical exams could be anything. They discussed amongst themselves, each student's giving their opinion of what the practical could be. They talked and brainstormed. Later on, Kendo from class 1B came around their table. She told them that the practicals would be similar to the entrance exams. She'd gotten some insight from someone who'd been in the first year like them. On that note, class 1A put their hearts to rest. If it was robots, they'd handle them easily, like they'd done at the entrance exams. But Izuku was lost in his thoughts. Slowly moving back and forth from his thoughts to the conversation, he was reflecting back on the conversation he had with All Might the previous day. The secret of One For All had been revealed to him. All For One, the progenitor quirk that birthed the quirk he now used. It was also the name of the villain he'd someday have to face. Midoriya wondered how he would accomplish something that All Might couldn't complete. Even with the innumerous stockpiled power of One For All Might hadn't come out of the battle with All For One unscathed. The threat of All For One was very, very real. How would he deal with the greatest villain ever with Black Whip? Time flew. Soon the written exams were over. Now it was time for the practical exams to begin. You're changing the exams? The students yelled in confusion. Pro Heroes stood just ahead of them, in front of the gates, to the grounds they were supposed to have their exams. The students were fully clothed in their costumes. Midoriya sported his black suit with his red boots, knee guards, his respirator, and white gloves. The suit had been customized to go along with the colors of his quirk. Thus, it was dyed black. The test now had a focus: to test them in combat and teamwork against real people, so their exams would be a 2v1 against a teacher at UA. The announcement brought about great skepticism. How could they expect students to win against veteran pros? And an even bigger shock came. Izuku and Bakugo had been paired to face All Might. The rules of the test were simple. The students either had to capture the teachers using special handcuffs or escape from them. But it was easier said than done. Even with those handcuffs against pros like this, it was still a huge mountain they had to overcome. Thankfully, Midoriya's exam would come last. It would give him time to think of a strategy against All Might. The matches were underway. Some of the teams succeeded in capturing the teachers with the handcuffs or escaping from their grasps. A few couldn't do either, or lost due to exceeding the time limit. Now, it was time for the final pair, Midoriya and Bakugo. Izuku really did his best. He had tried to talk to Bakugo so they could strategize coming up with something for the exam. He didn't see them winning. This is a test to overcome All Might's strength, but Bakugo thought otherwise. It was a fool's paradise that Bakugo sadly lived in. In fact, Bakugo didn't want to hear any of it. He had planned to go in and beat All Might all by himself. Simple. Well, not so much to Midoriya. Bakugo didn't like Midoriya's growth. It ticked him off. His quirk was similar to Saru's, nothing so fancy that couldn't rival him, but with the way he used it so adeptly, irritated him. He also had this nudging feeling in his gut that Midoriya had more tricks up his sleeve, something he wasn't too happy about. "Shut up and get away from me, you bastard! I'll beat All Might myself! I don't need your stupid analysis!" Bakugo barked to Midoriya. The green-haired lad trailed behind him as they walked down into the field. It was a commercial setting, with large buildings, streets, and everything you'd see in a bustling city. A perfect setting for his quirk. Midoriya planned to make a quick getaway, without encountering All Might at all, whereas Bakugo planned to charge head-on to tussle with All Might. There was definitely no teamwork in play here. A voice boomed through the whole field announcing the start of the exams. 562 pounds, 7'2", the number one hero stood at the other half of the mock city. The matchups were set in such a way it would help the students to overcome their weaknesses. Thus, Bakugo and Midoriya were paired. Hopefully, they'd put their differences aside and work together to beat him. There would be no prejudice here. Even if Midoriya was his successor, he'd hit them both equally as hard and push them to the limits. All Might's muscular frame bulged from his skin-tight suit. He flexed every single fiber of those muscles as a sort of light exercise. Slowly, he raised those massive biceps up. His arms retracted inwards, mimicking a stretch. His arms shot out at either of his sides with such ferocity granted by his quirk. Massive airwaves ripped throughout the city, destroying buildings, sending cars flying and bending metal with ease. The waves tore throughout the city, damaging all that it came in contact with. The practical had begun. Before we get back in, the torrents of wind took them off of their feet, literally. Midoriya and Bakugo were swept off their feet while the argument became heated. The wave knocked them back to reality of the looming threat of All Might. Both boys got to their feet abruptly, their senses now on high alert. They took fighting stances. How did he get here so fast? Bakugo wondered in confusion. In an instant, the burly figure of All Might emerged from the dust. The commanding presence the number one hero bore before them made them break out in a cold sweat. With a bold declaration, All Might made it crystal clear he wouldn't hold anything back. He was no more the hero they knew and loved. Well, in Midoriya's case at least. He'd take on the persona of a villain. "Here I come!" All Might's enthusiastic voice boomed. His body crouched low, his feet dug into the ground with such power it caused a crater around him. With blinding speed, his huge frame dashed across the street, headed straight at Midoriya and Bakugo. "Come at me, you bastard! Let me show you how the next number one hero fights!" Bakugo yelled with a sadistic smile across his face. His right arm was leveled with All Might, and his palm lit up red like hot iron. "No, Kachan! We have to run!" Midoriya said. A tendril wrapped around Bakugo's waist just as he was about to launch his attack, yanking him away from All Might. With his left arm, Midoriya swung away, with the tendril latched onto the buildings. He bound Bakugo hurriedly to make his getaway. "Let me go, Deku! Damn it, you idiot!" Bakugo yelled in frustration. Using his lit up right hand, he grasped the tendril, letting an explosion loose that tore him away. "No coordination. Cutting loose like that was a mistake, as well as trying to run away," All Might said, easily catching up to the two. He leapt up slightly. His hand reached out, grabbing Bakugo by the head the moment he broke loose from the tendril. Landing to the ground, he sent Bakugo crashing into the road. The boys crushed the tarmac. Bakugo's vision blurred, with probably the little common sense he had left knocked out of him, as he lay motionless on the ground. Leaping again, All Might sailed towards Midoriya. The boy was swinging away. Before he could react, All Might flew above him, grasping the tendril he was using to swing. With mighty strength, he changed Midoriya's course, sending him straight into the building. Midoriya's body shattered the glass and wooden frame of the small window as he dropped to the ground. Trudging slowly, he stopped in the midst of the two, looking on at Midoriya. "Don't turn your back on me! I'm the one you should be worried about. I'll wipe that smile off your face!" Bakugo said. He flew through the air using his explosions to propel him forward. All Might turned sharply. Clenching his fist, he aimed a punch at Bakugo's midsection, setting to drive it into his guts. "Think again!" Bakugo yelled. Aiming his right arm down, he let an explosion loose that shot him upwards and over All Might's blow. Sharply turning his body to face the hero's back, he let a burning explosion loose. The impact, like a Gatling gun, hit All Might with extreme force. For any other person, with such a huge offset of explosions and force, they'd be knocked out cold. But it didn't even look like it stung All Might.
Good, but not good enough,
the hero/villain said. He retracted his extended arm sharply, curving it into an elbow that drove into Bakugo's gut, sending him flying yards away from him and tumbling down the road. Bakugo rose with weak knees, but determined look on his face, disregarding the fact he just puked his lunch.
Yeah, that's it. Come at me like I'm the only one that matters here. You better give it your all Might, because I have to win here, by myself. I'd rather lose than get help from that idiot,
said Bakugo with disdain in his voice. When he had said the last part, persistently he lunged for All Might once more, with his palms wide spread. The nitroglycerin accumulated, began to ignite, while he took an aim at All Might. Don't say stuff like that! We're in this to win, aren't we, Kat-chan? Midoriya yelled. The boy had been able to stand on his 2 feet now after that heavy attack. Bakugo's words obviously didn't sit well with him. He couldn't tolerate the fact that someone as goal-driven to win as Bakugo would say something like that. Striking as quickly as a viper, a tendril shot out, hitting Bakugo in the jaw. As Midoriya yelled, it disoriented him and pushed him hard away from the path of All Might. But that wasn't all. Number 1 hero or not, All Might had to be stunned momentarily, considering the fact Midoriya had just hit his partner, and the green-haired lad capitalized on the fact in a split second. Following up instantly, he willed the whip, causing it to change course as it glided for All Might's eyes. The hero was shocked, but he recovered quickly, putting his arms up to guard his eyes. That was the window Midoriya needed. Without wasting time, he ran quickly, closing the short distance between himself and the two. Midoriya scooped up Bakugo and ran down the street as hard as he could before All Might could get his arms down. Midoriya knew he'd have to make Bakugo see reason to fight alongside him. Without both of them working together, there was no way they'd be able to win. Kat-chan, we need to talk. There's no way we're gonna win this if we don't work together. Once Midoriya ensured the coast was clear of All Might for now, he took a deep breath before he spoke. He had to make sure he was confident and serious, now that he had to speak to Bakugo. If you couldn't get Bakugo to work with his plan, it was over.
Ha ha ha! Wherever could they have gone?
All Might said with a gusty laugh as he raced across the town. He was on the search through all the corners of the city for the 2 boys who eluded him. It was only a matter of time before he found them. Charging out of the street, Bakugo came, alone.
Attacking on your own, eh? Well, it's something I expected from you, young Bakugo. I really thought you could work together with Midoriya. But where is he? He's running to the door. I can't allow that now, can I?
All Might said, shaking his head as he stopped running. Just up ahead, Bakugo stood blocking his path.
Well, we'll just have to go and find him together, won't we?
He spoke cheerfully, but it was obvious it wouldn't be a fun experience for Bakugo. Bakugo had already prepared. He started his run towards All Might. An explosion set off at his palms, burning fuel in a fiery mass swirling towards All Might. What did All Might do? He became a freight train, but way worse. The hero/villain, whichever you'd prefer, plowed his way straight through the explosion and into Bakugo. All Might ran at intense speeds, carrying Bakugo in a tow. The boy stuck his torso all in the air, driven from his lungs. Everything seemed like a blur, passing his eyes so quickly.
Now, let's go look for Midoriya, young Bakugo,
All Might said, speeding down the road. Bakugo had to do something quick.
Let me go, you bastard!
Bakugo growled. He struggled to pry his arms from underneath All Might's arm. Placing his hand directly on All Might's face, he had to put his all in one go. Bakugo only had one shot at this. He set off a huge explosion. Simultaneously, he pushed away, and luckily Bakugo set himself free. Flying high in the air, he flipped backwards to face the hero-villain.
Yeah, I guess I'll use this now. I was saving it for last, but oh well.
Bakugo shrugged slightly. He laced his fingers round the key that kept the nitroglycerin he'd been storing in his gauntlet in check, and with all a sharp pull, he released it. The tug ignited the combustible fuel that exploded instantly and powerfully. Seas of explosions rolled rapidly towards All Might. The hero stood his ground, running against the tide for a while, but even the powerful hero had his limits, and soon he was swept away and sent flying. Bakugo wasn't spared either. The backlash from releasing that sort of explosion burdened his arm. Instantly, he felt excruciating pain, well up as if his joints had been dislodged. He shot high into the air from the force and dropped down slowly while grasping his right arm, wincing as he did.
That should keep him busy for a while now, I bet.
Bakugo started before he was abruptly cut short. Careering through the air, All Might came. Almost instantly, it was like he wasn't even affected at all.
That was tough one, young Bakugo. Very good, but not enough. Now off we go to Midoriya,
All Might said as he blazed past Bakugo. He grabbed his left arm, dragging him along, but what he did was also crush the gauntlet on his left to ensure explosions like that wouldn't happen again.
I see the gate far ahead, but I don't see Midoriya.
All Might wondered in an instant. He dashed through the city with the gate in sight, but Midoriya was nowhere to be found. Out from an alley came Midoriya. Just as All Might had passed it, now was the time to act fast. He knew if he tried to swing to the exit, he'd be seen in the air, and All Might would catch up easily. Fighting head-on wasn't an option, but a sneak attack was. Plus, he had an idea that could work. Bind! Midoriya channeled his quirk. Multiple tendrils shot out from between his clenched knuckles. Each tendril began to branch off, till they became numerous and fastened around All Might. It was an attempt to restrain him. Well, for the meantime, what it did do was divert All Might's attention as he dropped Bakugo, turning his head to face Midoriya.
Oh, a surprise attack. Do you think these ropes will hold me, hero?
All Might said. Run, Kacchan! Cross the gate and win this! Midoriya yelled. Surprisingly, Bakugo, who didn't like taking orders, got to his feet and began and shot off in the air towards the gate, though it was still ways off. All Might pulled against the tendrils, snapping them with ease like knife to butter. He would have pulled Midoriya along to make a run for Bakugo, like he'd done earlier, but his legs were meshed together. It was a matter of time before he was free. Keep going, Kacchan! Go for the exit! I'll keep him occupied! Midoriya encouraged. He knew tendrils of 5% tensile strength wouldn't hold All Might in the least. He had to take a risk and increase his output of power to put All Might in a difficult position, so his thoughts would be diverted, or else his plan would fail. I have to crank it to 25%, double, just so it'll hold him for a bit longer. I hope my body can take that amount, Midoriya thought to himself. He set to work, willing and breaking the limiters of his quirk slightly. More whips shot out from his hands. These were more dense, stronger and quick, instantly replacing the former that had been torn, holding fast to the number one hero's muscles and holding him down. Pain seared throughout Midoriya's body as he felt his insides burning up. It was hard, but he set his mind to focus on his task at hand. Bakugo was now halfway towards the gate. Keep going, Kacchan! All Might can't catch up at this rate! Midoriya called. It was quite the big statement for Midoriya, considering who All Might was. It was something Midoriya wouldn't normally say, clearly a taunt. One All Might didn't take too lightly. The bonds had toughened, but it would only buy him a little more time. All Might's muscle tensed as he tore up the tendrils. With such gusto, it expelled torrents of air pressure around him.
That was quite the bind. But now to end this,
All Might said, quite anxiously now. He had been put down for quite some time, and Bakugo was almost to the gate. His only goal right now was to stop him. Bakugo and Midoriya have passed the practical exams! A voice boomed throughout the city, alerting everyone.
What? How? Young Bakugo hasn't escaped yet, and Midoriya...
All Might said, trailing off as he turned and looked down to his feet. There was Midoriya, and around All Might's ankle was the special handcuffs they'd been given at the start, fastly wrapped around All Might's ankles. Also was a tendril that slowly retracted now. It was a big risk since it was you we were up against, All Might, but we had to take it. Bakugo had to distract you with the plot that I was escaping, which I actually was in real sense, but you caught up too quickly, so I had to improvise. I'd have to hold you down for Bakugo to make the getaway, but all that was a ploy. I knew you could catch up easily to us, so I had to lure you into think all we really planned to do was escape, and not think we tried to cuff you. If the cuffing didn't work, but I stalled long enough, Bakugo would have crossed the gate and escaped if he could. I'd almost lost hope when you let that wind torrent loose, but I was able to hold on by a loose thread, ironically. Midoriya explained the whole plan he formulated with Bakugo earlier. Brilliant, yet risky. But they'd pull through with teamwork. Oddly surprising they'd been able to work together.
You did well, Midoriya. That was brilliant of you. And you too, Bakugo. I never believed you two could work together so well. I'm truly proud.
All Might said, with a look of approval plastered across his face as he looked at the two boys. Midoriya stood weakly on his feet. The output he used was far too heavy for his body, and if it were not for the win, he'd either be incapacitated or unable to fight effectively if the exams pulled longer. He still had ways to go, but for now, he'd relish in the fact that he'd passed his practical exams. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in the story thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes over into the facts and lore of a wide variety of anime. It's sure to expand your weeb knowledge for all kinds of series guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We the Celestials and Naruto What Ifs. It's what goes on this channel already, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. Go check it out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action. I'd like to let you all know on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the descriptions below. If you're perhaps interested in what we do here at WTC, then I would like to extend our invitation to join the team. The only caveat being we only accept members 16 and older to join our crew. You can find us on our Discord, which you can locate in the description below. Our Discord is an all-round fantastic place to be. Whether you're a fan or looking to join our band of misfits, all you gotta do is hit up the recruitment server and sign up for whichever category or work that fulfills your interest. We're always looking for more members to join us. Well, that's it for us for today's video, so thank you all for watching and have a great day.